DSLR.
Getting up from the knockdown and
Mirrorless.
walks in and says, "Eat this."
Hey, what is going on YouTube? Thank you so much for joining me today. So today I'm gonna give you 5 reasons to switch to a mirrorless camera, but not this one. So before I start this video, I just wanna say this video is not intended to pick on DSLRs. I still love my DSLR and I'm not saying throw yours away. However, I think mirrorless cameras have huge potential, and if the circumstance is right, then yes, it can be an amazing switch for you. Let me give you a quick rundown on the differences between mirrorless and DSLR. Without making this super complicated, how a DSLR works is light enters the lens, bounces off a mirror, and hits the sensor. Now the sensor records that image onto the camera, thus saving it for later for you to open on the computer. Now mirrorless cameras are different. The light enters the lens and hits the sensor directly. So by completely eliminating mirrors, it saves a lot of space inside the camera body, meaning you don't have to carry around a bulky DSLR anymore. Now there are some limitations to that, which I will get to in a bit. So here are my 5 top reasons to switch to a mirrorless camera. So number 1 is portability. My Sony A5000, which I'm filming with right now, weighs just under 400 grams, which is really convenient. My Nikon D7200 on the other hand weighs a ton more. So because of that, the Sony is always my go-to when I'm going out to do shoots. Even though my D7200 has better specs, I still choose the Sony because it's way more portable. Another interesting thing that my Nikon and my Sony have in common is that their sensors are almost identical. The sensor in the Nikon is just a tiny bit bigger, but I'm still giving the point to the Sony because of its amazing form factor. So reason number 2 is focus points. Now my Sony A5000 only has 25 focus points, but Sony's latest camera, the A6500, has 425 focus points, which is just nuts. So number 3 is video autofocus. Even though my Sony A5000 is a lower end mirrorless camera, it still does amazing autofocus. Even as I'm filming this, it's tracking my face left to right. It's pretty amazing. Now believe it or not, my D7200 actually does a worse job at autofocusing than my A5000, which costs half the price. I've also done some test shots with my Nikon D5100, and I still think the A5000 is way better at autofocusing. And I'll say it again, the performance for how small the camera is just amazing. Now my third reason is burst rate. The Sony A6500 has an 11 FPS burst rate, which is really insane, guys, for how small the camera is. And that is a huge reason why I recommend mirrorless cameras in the first place, because they are so snappy and they can capture that amazing moment so quick. Now so can this, but the mirrorless camera is just so much quicker to pull out and use. And for my style of shooting, the small camera size is just so convenient. So my number 4 reason is the ISO range. So my Sony A5000 tops out at 16,000 ISO, and I'll admit my D7200 tops out at 25,000 ISO. However, the Sony A6500 tops out at 25,000 ISO as well. And with the kit lens on it, it's about a quarter of the size of the D7200, and it has the same price tag. So because of technology, you can have the quality of this with the form factor of this, and that is pretty amazing. So reason number 5 is image stabilization. Since DSLRs are more geared towards photographers, it does have vibration reduction in the lens. However, for video, there is no image stabilization in this body. This is a $1,600 camera, guys, and it does not have any video stabilization. Even though it is geared towards photographers, it is so convenient to have both. Now, the Nikon D5100, on the other hand, does have image stabilization. However, it's not quite as good as the D7200. My point here is that the D5100 is much cheaper than the D7200 and offers image stabilization, but it's a much older camera and technology is always improving. At last, there is a solution. Now, I think image stabilization is one of the most important things you should look into when buying a camera. Now, sadly, my Sony A5000 does not have image stabilization, but I really wanted that flip-up screen for vlogging, so I got it anyway. However, the Sony A6500 does have image stabilization, and it does an amazing job. I've seen test shots with it, and I'm very impressed. So for the same price as the D7200, you can have image stabilization, you can have portability, you can have great ISO, and best of all, you don't have to lug around a giant camera. Now, despite these amazing features, there's a couple things you need to think about before buying a mirrorless camera, and one of those things is battery life. Out of my Sony A5000, I'll get about 400 shots. On the other hand, my D7200 gets just over 1,000 shots. And like I said, especially for video, you're giving up a lot of portability with this. Now, the simple solution to this is just get a few more batteries, guys. They're super cheap on Amazon, $30, $40 for a pack. In the description below, I'll leave a link to the batteries that I have for my Sony A5000. They're amazing. They're only about $40, guys. Now, there's one more thing I want to cover about mirrorless cameras. I showed this camera at the beginning of the video, and I told you not to get it, and now I'm going to tell you why. This is the Sony A3000. Now this camera is actually pretty good, but I'm going to use it as my example of why you should not go cheap on a mirrorless camera. So this camera has no image stabilization. Viewfinders on expensive Sony cameras are really amazing, but you can tell Sony cheaped out on this one. It's really hard to use, even taking pictures. So if you get this camera, you may as well just use the screen. And it's still got some pretty cool features, but like I said, the image stabilization is really important, guys. If you can afford to spend a little more, guys, you will get so much more bang for your buck. In the long run, it's a great investment because it reduces the need for a Steadicam. So that is is all for this video, guys. That is my 5 reasons to switch to a mirrorless camera. Like and subscribe below for more content, and I will be back very soon with a new video, so stay tuned for that. And once again, guys, thanks for watching.